close.
Ready to go.
Come close.
Now go for it.
Hello and welcome to the Party at James podcast. I'm your host. My name's Donald. We're going to talk some music, discuss some good topics. Out in Phoenix, we have Handsome Ted Ransom. And here in Los Angeles, we have Max Straight. You can get your Max fix on the podcast while he's away. And also we have a special guest. He's a good friend of mine, my best friend. My friend throughout high school, has had the most influence on me musically. So anything that I like, this guy probably suggested them to me. It's my friend Giorg. He's here in Los Angeles as well.
Hello.
So our topic today, we're going to start with Queens of the Stone Age, Villains, the album. And then from there, we're going to discuss the evolution of that band and then kind of their impact that they've had as artists. And then hopefully it leads to a bigger discussion that I'd like to have about how we feel about music and why we develop certain opinions of music and how we discredit or credit music as fans. So getting back to Villains.
Yeah. So I listened to it a little bit like on YouTube and that, but I finally hooked my turntable back up and played the whole record. So yeah, I really liked it. I think it's way better than Like Clockwork. I'm kind of like sort of, I guess, in the minority. I really didn't like Clockwork very much at all. I think it's kind of boring and it kind of meanders and doesn't really isn't like a rock and roll album. And that was after Josh Homme had writer's block. So I really enjoyed it. What I thought was interesting is because my friend mentioned that he was influenced, that Josh Homme was influenced because of doing the album with Iggy Pop, where he did the post-pop depression. Basically, there was Like Clockwork, and then he did the album with Iggy Pop, and then brought back Queens of the Stone Age and did this. And what was interesting, I finally got the Iggy Pop album only like a few weeks ago. I found it really cheap on CD at a record store. And it's Josh and three other dudes. None of them are really Queens of the Stone Age affiliated, but every single song they're playing a ton of instruments. Like they're all the drummers, mostly drums and percussion, but everyone's playing like there's steel guitar, there's slide guitar, there's stand-up bass, there's kind of every instrument that they could possibly think of to kind of embellish the Iggy Pop songs. And I do think that had a big influence on how he wrote Villains and how that was executed. So I really, thankfully, like a lot of the earlier Queens of the Stone Age, their pressings on vinyl sound like shit. First album's good because they remastered it, but like most of the Interscope stuff basically sounds like it's ripped from a CD, especially Rated X, which is the vinyl version of Rated R. My friend got it, and it just sounds horrible. Like there's no fidelity at all. There's no depth. So I got Like Clockwork, but I didn't really care because I didn't think it sounded good to begin with, but at least the fidelity was okay. But after playing Villains, it has a really, really good sound to it. The bass is really, really clear and clean. Some people were complaining that the drummer, because it's the drummer that was the drummer for Mars Volta before Omar was a complete dick like he usually is and basically forced him to quit. So people are like, he's underutilized and he's not, he could do more and da-da-da. But I think that's what's kind of cool with Queens of the Stone Age and what Josh Homme does is he gets super talented musicians, but he doesn't necessarily feel like a need and like a necessity that he has to showcase all of what they do. Like they're basically there because it's his band and they're doing what he wants them to do. So the drums are tight, they're really well done, but they definitely do not dominate the album, which I thought was really interesting. So I thought that was kind of a neat, interesting kind of way that all this came together. So you can hear a lot of like bells and chimes and other instruments that go along with it, but it actually still kind of goes back to, it still feels like a rock and roll album, which I didn't think Like Clockwork did. And I'm in the minority. I have no problem with Eva Vulgaris and another one that nobody likes. Like, I thought both of those were fine. I didn't think that every single song was good, but there's good songs on all of them. The only one that I was like, I wouldn't even make a mixtape out of this was the Like Clockworks. The one negative I would say is the first song. I was like, oh great, here we go. It's Like Clockwork again. It's just kind of boring and kind of meanders and it doesn't do much. But as the album progresses, it gets steadily better. And I love the last song. Like I think it's like got a nice epic sound and feel, and it's like a perfect way to end an album. The way it was pressed on vinyl is 3 sides, so it's regular 33 RPM. So there's not a fourth side. It's just like, etching. So each it kind of plays like a little mini trilogy. Like each it's 9 songs, so it's 3 songs on each side. Each side kind of has like its own kind of feel to it, which I thought was really neat. Like there was a lot of thought and care that went into this. Not that I'm not saying that Like Clockwork didn't, but there's just something better about this album, and like my fears that they shit the bed and they're going the way of the Foo Fighters or something like that are gone. Like, I actually really like this album. I can see myself playing it a bunch in the future too. Maybe not starting with side A every time, maybe playing more side B and C, but I really liked it.
I noticed that I was listening to it on the way home, and I had been listening to it throughout the day. But on the way home, I got in my truck, and it was on the last song. So I heard the last song first, and then it led into the first song, and it sounded great. It sounded awesome. It was a great experience to hear it that way.
Cool.
Ted?
So I listened to it on YouTube, and the very first track, I thought, Jesus, this sounds like Styx. It was so gimmicky. And I had the family in there, so I couldn't pay 100% attention to it. But, I started to like it more that I heard it. And, I like the music. I like the production. People are really ripping the production, saying Mark Ronson got it all wrong. I don't care about that. I think it sounds like a good, new take on a rock record for them. But I'm getting leery of the vocals.